Hi everyone, and welcome to Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review. I'm Stephanie, and I've been collecting and selling vintage fashion magazines for over 20 years.
And I'm Morley. I'm a former copywriter and am now an award-winning playwright and screenwriter.
Together, we will examine some of your favorite vintage fashion magazines from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
On Uncovered, we'll discuss some of the magazine's models, layouts, and did I mention the models?
And we'll also review some of the ads and articles that make these magazines such a great piece of pop culture history. So, fasten your seatbelts and let's get uncovered. Hi everyone, and welcome to the 4th episode of our podcast, Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review. I'm Steph.
And I'm Morley.
And today we're going to discuss Vogue magazine, June 1991.
So, do you remember anything about 1991 in particular, let alone June?
I remember it was the beginning of a very exciting decade, the 90s.
Right. So the question is, does the decade begin in 1990? Or does it really begin 1991?
I think that it begins January 1st, 1990. What do you think?
I don't know, actually. I guess it depends when they started. But you're probably right. I'm not sure.
I don't know if there's a right or wrong. It depends how you define began, but that's a deeper existential discussion.
I think most people would probably say yes, it's 1990. But anyway, let's move on.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. So some of the most popular songs at that time that you'd be very glad to hear about was from one of your favorites, Mariah Carey.
Oh, love Mariah.
I Don't Want to Cry, which I did when we went to see her in concert.
And thank you for taking me for my birthday.
Yes, you're welcome. But then again, thank you for coming to the Three Stooges Museum with me later on that year.
Yeah.
So I think we're even. But
you definitely owe me one for that.
I think you still owe me for that. Also, there's a couple more songs. More Than Words by Extreme. Remember that song?
Yes, definitely.
Great
song.
Yeah, Rush Rush by Paula Abdul.
She's great.
Yeah.
And half Canadian.
Is she?
Just a shout out. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Her mom is from Montreal, I believe.
Oh, okay.
or Montreal.
Well, that would be French-Canadian. You're about
Not
to say.
necessarily.
Okay. Well, she's from Montreal. Anyway, she could be Anglo-Canadian. Doesn't matter. Let's move right along. Also, in 1991 in June, some of the movies that just came out were Jungle Fever, Spike Lee movie. One of my favorite Billy Crystal films was City Slickers.
Great movie. Yeah. That was 91?
That was 91.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that movie. And then there was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. I did not. Zero interest. For me, Robin Hood will always be Errol Flynn, and Olivia de Havilland is Maid Marian. So for me, nothing's going to compete with the classics.
I get that.
Also in 1991, in June, in fact, some interesting headlines. Dana Plato. Remember her from Facts of Life?
Yes.
Led a very troubled life. She was arrested. She was actually sentenced to 6 years for robbing a video store.
Well, that's very sad. She sort of had that child star.
Yes. She was in the Facts of Life, you recall?
Yeah.
With Todd Bridges and another troubled star, Gary Coleman. Microsoft released MS-DOS version 5.0. I remember MS-DOS. I loved it. So that was one of the first operating systems I used. It was MS-DOS. Of course it was. And then what else was there?
So yes, this was pre-internet.
Pre-internet.
So anything to do with computers was huge.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be talking about one of the ads. And lastly, also Pablo Escobar, of course, notorious Colombian drug lord, he surrendered to police. And that was probably one of the first couple of times before he escaped. If any of you have seen the Netflix series Narcos, I think seasons 1 and 2, I believe, focus on Escobar. Fantastic series.
Oh, that's a great series.
Really highly recommended.
Highly recommended, yes.
So those are some of the events, the sounds, and the sights that we're enjoying in June of 1991.
Yep.
So let's talk about the magazine.
So 1991 was, of course, a very interesting year in fashion as well. And the supermodels were going full force. And on the cover, we have one of them. Her name is Tatjana Patitz, and she's wearing fashion by Gianni Versace. The photo is by Walter Chin, hair by Troy Halterman, and makeup by Sonia Kashuk. And I'm just going to read out some of the headlines on the cover. So, this was a summer issue. Special summer fashion issue. 3 top designers pick your wardrobe. Dress for less. Soft colors, flirty skirts.
Ooh.
Yes. Best looks for the beach.
Okay.
A guide to 20 top spas.
Okay.
And last but definitely not least, Elizabeth Taylor on life, love, and survival.
Well, who would know better than her? I mean, she certainly lived all of them to the most.
Yes. So Tatjana Patitz as I had mentioned, she's one of the supermodels of the 1990s. She began the decade by appearing on the cover of American and British Vogue, January 1990. So that's huge to be chosen for that very, very important
It's quite
issue.
an honor, yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was the British Vogue cover was a Peter Lindbergh cover. And she was on there along with Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, and Christy Turlington.
Never heard of them.
No, right?
No.
They were so huge. So this particular photo, this cover photo for British Vogue by Peter Lindbergh, inspired George Michael to select these same models to appear in his video. Remember Freedom 90?
Absolutely. Great song.
Amazing song.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, Petits has appeared on over 200 magazine covers worldwide, including 7 covers of American Vogue and 13 covers of British Vogue.
Wow.
Yes.
Very
So this
impressive.
particular cover, I like it because, first of all, she's beautiful. She's wearing her hair short, neutral toned makeup. It's a beautiful blue gown by, again, Gianni Versace. Gold earrings by Paloma Picasso for Tiffany. Did you know that Pablo Picasso's daughter Paloma was actually a jewelry designer for Tiffany and for decades?
That is amazing.
She still is.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. So this is not as close up of a shot as we're used to seeing from the 70s and 80s issues. And also, it has the appearance of being photographed outdoors. I didn't find mentioned anywhere where it was photographed, but it does look like an outdoors photo.
It does, yeah.
Which is different from the earlier issues of Vogue. Mostly, I believe they were taken in a studio.
Right.
As opposed to outside somewhere in here. This is clearly an outdoor shot. She looks gorgeous. And so that's the cover.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. That's great. Okay, so now we have page 31, and there's an ad I want to bring to everyone's attention. It's an ad for Clarion. So Clarion, Steph, I take it as probably...
Cosmetics,
okay.
company.
And do you know who that model is?
Her name's Julie Anderson. Interestingly enough, they've actually named her at the top of the page, Julie. But she was a huge model as well.
Okay. So what caught my attention, aside from the fact it's a beautiful photograph, it's a little bit busy, but some of the words I really enjoyed. So what really stood out for me was the line in the middle. And it says, what makes you different can make you beautiful, which must make me gorgeous. No, but I like that line a lot. What makes you different can make you beautiful.
Yes.
And I like how even then they're trying to get into that inclusivity type of theme. The other part of the ad itself that I found very interesting was the last part. It said, find your best face. The Clarion computer shows you how. Now, the very first...
So did we have that technology yet? This is 91.
Well, this is what's interesting. The very first computer I used was back in 1990. So if any of you computer geeks out there may recall, there's a computer that I use called an XT. So you know how you have Windows and all that?
Yes.
Forget, this is way before that. So you had Windows XT. The next version of that, well, it wasn't even called Windows, it's simply XT. Then after that, you had 286, a 386, a 486, which at the time was like the size of my desk. And then eventually you got into Windows. So we're talking back in 1990, we had these monochrome screens, but back in this ad, they're talking about the Clarion computer. I find that amazing.
How interesting.
In 1991. I remember it probably in 1990 and 1991, they had the VGA and the Super VGA graphics. So you could actually see some colors. They were terrible colors. But I just found it very interesting. They're talking about computers back in 1991. So I'd be very curious to know what the Clarion computer showed you. So I found that very interesting. Yeah, it was really sort of the introduction of computers and becoming more mainstream. I didn't even get my first home computer till 1998. And I paid a small fortune for it. So it'd be very interesting to see what they would have done with that.
Yeah. Very interesting. So the next item I'd like to bring our attention to, it's a layout on page 124 entitled Surf's Up. And the caption is, beach dressing refined enough for seaside cafes. And it's Cindy Crawford, who, by the way, is mentioned by name because, again, she's part of the supermodel phenomenon that's huge right now in this time period. She's photographed on location in Oahu, Hawaii, with a bunch of surfers. And this is sort of your typical summer layout. She's photographed wearing leggings, crop tops, shorts, t-shirts, and a bikini. Designers include Azzedine Alaia, Adrienne Vittadini, Isaac Mizrahi, Benetton, J. Crew, Donna Karen, Michael Kors, and Norma Kamali. She's photographed in various poses, with and without the surfers, looking gorgeous as always. One photo that I thought was pretty interesting was that she's shown showering in a dress and heels because, of course...
Well, doesn't everyone?
Everyone on the beach is showering in a dress and heels.
Me too.
But my favorite photo of the series is this one here.
Which is?
It's a photo she's shown in a truck. She's sort of leaning back against the seat with her arm draped over the steering wheel. She's wearing its unitard bodysuit, pink and white checks, and she looks absolutely gorgeous. But what I noticed about it is it actually seems like a precursor to her Pepsi ad. That aired the following year. Okay?
Good observation, yeah.
Yeah, don't you think?
Absolutely, you're right.
I thought that was really interesting. I wonder if that inspired Pepsi, this particular photo inspired them to show her coming out of, I don't think she was coming out of a truck in the original ad. I believe it was possibly a car.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyhow, Cindy Crawford looking gorgeous with or without the car. I actually saw a very interesting video. And in 1986, this is on YouTube, by the way. In 1986, Cindy Crawford and her agent, John Casablancas, were interviewed on Oprah, on the Oprah show. You know, she's originally from DeKalb, Illinois, which is a suburb or part of the great Chicago area.
Right.
And so Oprah's filmed in Chicago, so this was sort of one of their own. At the time, and this is again 1986, John Casablancas says, and I'm going to quote, that Cindy could be number one in the business if she wants to be. She'd already appeared on the cover of American Vogue that same year, 1986. So I really thought that this was an interesting prediction on the part of John Casablancas. Interesting in that accuracy of the prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. Boy, did she ever want to be number one.
Yeah, and so clearly he was very good at his job, and in the end, she did want to be number one.
Yes, and she
accomplished that.
And she's clearly passed on her not only her genes, but her ambition to her daughter.
Yes.
Kaya Gerber.
Actually, she has a daughter and a son, and they're both models, Kaya Gerber and Presley Gerber.
Ah.
Yes.
Great.
So taking after their gorgeous mother.
Very nice. All right, well, that's certainly very interesting. Thanks for going over that with us.
My pleasure.
All right, so on page 90, there's an interesting layout about the royal scandals. Ooh.
Yes, this is actually an article.
It's an article. It's a multi-page article. And the caption at the top says, Royal scandals have the tabloids thriving. But what are they doing to the monarchy? Emma Soames looks at the royal state. Anyway, it's a very interesting multi-page layout or article about the royal scandals. One of the ones they talked about was how Prince Charles embraced the wife of his best friend, Lord Romsey, while wearing swimsuits. Now, as it turned out, apparently it was later revealed the very next day that her 7-year-old daughter was suffering from leukemia. So the son later apologized. Oh, wow. It's very sad. The Daily Mirror, another tabloid in the UK, they printed a series of stories about Prince Edward, who at the time was unmarried. He was 26 years old. And they're talking about that he had a touching friendship with a young actor, in quotes. And the headline was, Prince Edward, I'm not gay. So for those of you who are not familiar with the British press, they could be vicious. So, you know, one of the things I was actually wondering about over time is, you know who my favorite music group of all time is, right?
The Beatles.
Of course.
Who else?
No one else. However, what I was wondering about is, could the Beatles have existed in the 90s or in the 2000s? Because let's face it, with all the tabloids, with the internet, I don't think they would have lasted more than a few years. There would have been so much pressure on them. We know how harsh and how cruel the British press could be. I don't think they would last. I mean,
not to mention, with everybody knowing everything that's going on in the world with the internet, there would have been a new story every day, literally.
I mean, it was probably really bad for them at that time. But imagine now. In fact, what the Beatles used to say was the only time they could get peace and quiet was when they locked the bathroom door of their hotel room.
Right.
And in fact, sometimes I know John and Paul would even write songs in the bathroom. But it was just very sad for them. So you can imagine in the 90s and even before that, the royals, all the scandals. And this is before the internet. Imagine if the internet was around back then.
Right.
How much worse it would have been.
Right.
But anyway, it's certainly a very interesting series of pages about the royals and about the scandals. It's really much ado about nothing, but you really have to feel sorry for them and how they were really living under a microscope back then and how much worse it's gotten over the years.
Yeah, and very timely to come across this article when we just finished watching The Crown on
Absolutely,
Netflix.
Yeah.
So very, very timely as well.
But you have to sometimes wonder if some people who were really, really famous years ago would have been as famous, because maybe they wouldn't be able to handle the pressure, the fame and all that. So it's certainly an interesting concept to think about.
But there's really no getting away from it these days.
No.
Everyone knows everything that everyone is doing all the time. It's crazy. Absolutely.
And of course, the newspapers are paying bounties for information and photos. And TMZ is, of course, everyone knows TMZ, a website, and they have a TV show where they pay scandalous amounts of money for pictures of celebrities during their private time. It's crazy. So anyway, it's just certainly a very interesting article about the royals and the scandals, and I thought it was worth bringing to your attention.
So the next layout that we're going to review is on page 140, and it's called Summer Systems. The photographer is Marc Hispard. The editor is Polly Mellon, and the models are Nadege du Bospertus, Yasmeen Ghauri, and Karen Mulder. Hair by Sacha Cohen, makeup by Emmanuelle Strich. And so what this actually is, it's a layout and article. 3 American designers, Bill Blass, Donna Karen, and Calvin Klein, discuss their real-life approaches to summer fashion. So the first designer is Bill Blass. He dresses Nadege. She's wearing red and white in this layout. And I thought that his advice was interesting because what he suggests for a summer getaway is, so most of us when we go away, we bring maybe a few pairs of pants and we change our top. We have a rotation of tops.
Okay.
And his advice actually is a departure from popular wisdom. It's to bring 1 t-shirt, 1 long white linen jacket, and then a change of skirts and trousers.
Now, how do you feel about linen jackets?
Love.
Okay. I like them, but I find they get creased in 2 seconds.
They do, but that's the look.
Oh, they're supposed to look creased.
They're supposed to, yes.
Well, that's why, folks, I'm not in fashion. So go on.
Love linen. It's very nice and light in the summer.
Okay.
So the next designer is Donna Karen. She's dressing Yasmeen. And of course, we love Yasmeen because she's from Montreal.
And now she shares the same last name as you.
And we have 2 things in common. We're both from Montreal, and we both share the name Bernstein.
Exactly.
She's married to someone by his last name is Bernstein. Anyhow, what she's wearing, as I might have mentioned, Donna Karen, swimsuit-inspired clothing, tops, dresses, or unitard cotton linen, silk taffeta are the fabrics. She looks very beautiful. Now, I remember when these unitards were in style, and I think I even had one, and Donna Karen was well known for having them in her collection. So it was really a one-piece pants and top, and looked very smooth underneath a jacket.
A one-piece pants and top. Isn't that what you used to wear, like in your bunny?
Oh
jammies?
boy, no, bunny slippers not included.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Footsie's not included.
Okay.
No, so this was the look in the early 90s, and I also remember bodysuits, which she also did. Donna Karen also had designed these bodysuits, and they were sort of like a top that fastened at the crotch.
Okay.
And I used to have some of those as well, but I remember they looked very smooth underneath clothing, but they weren't as comfortable for me. It was sort of like wearing a bathing suit underneath your clothing, in my opinion.
It almost sounds like Spanx for, no?
Well, sort of, but
okay.
It looked very nice.
Okay, got it.
So, and the third designer is Calvin Klein, and he's dressing Karen Mulder. And what he recommends for summer dressing is quick, easy, and light clothing, jeans,
good,
which comes as no surprise. It
Shock.
is Calvin Klein after all.
Absolutely.
But he's done them in an icy pink.
Icy pink, okay.
Yes.
New color, folks. I've never heard of that one before, but icy pink, good to know.
Here it is. We'll turn to that page. Have a look. What do you think?
Which? That's pink?
That's pink.
Looks like light brown to me, but okay. Icy pink, sure. What do I know?
Okay, moving right along. Calvin Klein recommends a single button jacket, unitard. Again, we're seeing that again.
Okay.
Nothing dressier than washed silk. And he recommends the one item that you need for a summer getaway, a poplin windbreaker.
A what?
Poplin. It's a fabric.
Poplin is a fabric. How do you spell poplin? I've never heard of this fabric in my entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in my 50s. And how do you spell poplin? Okay, so she can't tell me. It doesn't exist. She just made up. That's great. So, folks, my wife just made up words as she's doing the podcast. That's okay. I can make up words too. So I'm actually wearing a Shamaran button-down shirt.
I think that's it for this layout, folks.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to make you aware that I owe my wife an apology Apparently poplin is a word, but what's interesting is that when I looked it up, it says poplin, also called tabinet. So it almost sounds like you make up a word, and then to describe it, they use another made-up word, tabinet.
You're killing me.
And again, I've never heard of tabinet, but apparently poplin, also called tabinet, is a fine but thick wool, cotton, or silk fabric that has a horizontal warp. I have no, I know this is English, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm reading here. So if anyone wants to email me personally, they can email us at uncoveredpodcast@yahoo.com. And please, if you know anything about linens or textures, explain to me, because I have no idea what poplin or
Morley, you are officially fired as a fashion designer. There's no fashion design in your future.
Thank goodness. Okay. So next.
Moving right along, page 167. It's an article and layout entitled Liz. Okay? And it's 7 pages.
So, by the way, when we're talking about Liz, we could be talking about Liz Claiborne. We could be talking about Liz. There was a gossip columnist by the name of Liz. I'm not sure.
Liz Smith?
Liz Smith. I think that's right. Very good. But who else can we be talking about other than?
No one. There's only one Liz.
That's right.
Liz Taylor.
Right.
Magnificent. So this layout and article, it's photographed by Herb Ritts, editor Polly Mellon. The celebrity is obviously Elizabeth Taylor.
And just to let you know, I love Ritz crackers. So Herb Ritts is one of my favorite photographers right now. Just telling you.
Hair by Jose Eber. Makeup by Francesca Tolot. So it's an interview. Elizabeth Taylor is being interviewed. Photos by Herb Ritts, legend in the industry, which we will talk about momentarily.
And Ritts, by the way, is R-I-T-T-S. I'm only being silly. Of course.
They know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They know.
Sorry.
Our audience knows.
But does your audience also know that Elizabeth Taylor has been rated the 7th greatest female star of the 20th century?
Well, that comes as no surprise. She is magnificent.
She really is. A little bit of background about Elizabeth Taylor. She was born in 1932. She was actually born in the UK.
Yes.
Her parents were American, but I guess they're in the UK. She moved back to Los Angeles, I believe when she was 7. A little bit more about her career highlights. She appeared in such iconic films as Giant, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Cleopatra, which caused a scandal when she had an affair with the very much married Richard Burton, who she ends up marrying twice. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Now, she was also known not just for her many marriages. I mean, she was married 8 times. I mean, she probably had rice marks on her face. But she's been married 8 times. But she's also quite the philanthropist. I mean, when I think of philanthropy, she's also one of the top people I think of personally. How much she's done for AIDS research and various charities. And what's also nice is that she was also a dame. She was she was Dame Elizabeth Taylor.
So I really loved her performance, particularly in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And I just want to say that it mirrored her struggles in real life, because she did have addiction issues. And she did have, I believe, an addiction to painkillers.
Yeah, I think it was Percodan is what they talk about in the article.
Yeah, and she worked very, very hard, and she did overcome them.
Yeah, in the article, it talks about how she's a survivor. And she absolutely was. I mean, what she went through, the death of one of her husbands in a horrific plane crash. I think it was Nikki Hilton, if I'm not mistaken, or is it Mike Todd? I can't recall. But she went through a lot of abusive relationships. She had a lot of health struggles herself. She struggled with obesity, addiction to painkillers, as you mentioned as well.
But you know what I really love and respect about Elizabeth Taylor is how open she was in discussing her struggles. Even in this article, she's very open about it. It's clear that she wants to, there was a time that actors and actresses were supposed to be perfect. They weren't supposed to have problems. And here she is coming out saying, I've had these issues. I'm working very hard to overcome them. I have worked very hard to overcome them. I want to make the world a better place, and I want to help people. And I really think that she did.
She absolutely did.
She's beautiful. She's an amazing actress.
And she was known, of course, for those of you who may not remember her violet eyes.
Beautiful.
Absolutely stunning.
Beautiful lady.
Yeah.
So I did want to talk also a little bit about the photographer for this layout, Herb Ritts. So Herb Ritts was a fantastic photographer. He was born in Los Angeles. And I I didn't know this or didn't remember that he actually photographed Olivia Newton-John for the cover of Physical.
Oh, wow.
Her album. Do you remember that? In 1981.
I don't remember the album, but I remember the video, of course. Great video.
So she sort of posed sideways, her head thrown back.
Right.
And actually, Herb Ritts went on to pose Madonna the exact same way for her cover of True Blue in 1986. So I thought that was really interesting that he would replicate the same look for Madonna.
Yeah, he did Madonna video Cherish.
He did. That was in 1989, a few years later.
He also did work with Janet Jackson, Chris Isaak, John Bon Jovi he did as well for the video Please Come Home for Christmas, which also featured Cindy Crawford.
Yes, and he was also known for his celebrity portraits. Some of his subjects were Vincent Price, Denzel Washington, Johnny Depp, David Bowie, Michael Jackson.
Wow.
Britney Spears, as well as the 90s supermodels.
Yeah.
So very, very well-known photographer. Do you remember the video for Cherish?
I do.
So Madonna's on the beach, looking very seductive and sultry, rolling around on the sand, and she just looked so beautiful.
Yes.
I thought he did an amazing job.
He really did, and died tragically at the age of 50.
Yes, he died of pneumonia in 2002.
Right, very sad.
Too young, gone too soon.
Way too soon.
So that's Herb Ritts.
But he certainly left his mark in the fashion world and also in the music world as well.
He did.
Yeah, so that was...
And here he's done an excellent job of photographing Liz Taylor.
Yeah.
He really has a way of getting personality out of his subjects.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at that.
And this is no exception. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at that.
Amazing photographer, great article. And by the way, if you're interested in any of these magazines that we're reviewing, they're all available on my eBay and Etsy store, Great Mags. That's spelled GR, number 8, MAGZ. Or check me out on Instagram. My handle is also Great Mags, as I just spelled. And please feel free to visit our Instagram page for Uncovered. It's uncovered_VFMR.
And we're also available on Twitter, which is UncoveredVFMR as well. And we'd love to hear from you.
Please feel free to send us a message. We're always happy to hear from you. So, last but not least, we come to page 194. And the last layout that we're going to review is entitled Dress for Less, The Soft Touch. The model is Marielle Macville, photographer Isabel Snyder, fashion editor Elizabeth Saltzman, hair by Eric Gabriel, and makeup by Sandy Linter.
Now, I recognize that last name.
Oh, Sandy Linter?
Absolutely.
A legend. Legend in the fashion industry. She's a legendary makeup artist. She's been working in the fashion industry since the 1970s, so you can imagine the amount of experience that she has. She's published 2 books.
Wow.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. She's got a gift for making women look their very best at any age. Her clients have included, just to name a few, Jackie Onassis, Patty Hansen, Christy Brinkley, Cindy Crawford, Elizabeth Hurley, so many more.
Wow.
She's very, very good about giving advice. If you look at her Instagram page, she's giving advice all the time, helpful tips.
Sounds like your mother. She's good at giving advice too. Except, all right. Anyway.
So, Sandy, if you're listening, I would love to have my makeup done by you one day.
Well, the way you're describing it, so would I.
The only thing we need is an occasion.
Okay.
And it's got to be in New York.
True.
So if anyone's got a wedding, bar mitzvah, anything happening in New York, we'll make ourselves available.
Absolutely.
Met Gala, just reach out and let us know.
Right.
Uncoveredpodcast@yahoo.com.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, this is a very, very beautiful layout. The model is wearing pastel colors, which is very, very appropriate for the summer. She's wearing pinks, green, blue, yellow.
I like this. I love this, Steph. Because you're using colors I recognize. Yellows, blues. You're not using this
I know. You
icy
don't like
pink and
fuchsia and all the
fuchsia
colors that you
these
don't
weird...
recognize.
I love this. This is great. So please continue on. I'm riveted.
Well, thanks. So she's wearing short dresses and skirts. She's photographed looking very beautiful. Photographed with a classic car, a dog, adorable dog.
Cute dog.
Yes.
Bulldog.
A baby.
English bulldog.
So So they somewhat made this look like a family scene. It's photographed on the beach. It looks to me like South Beach, South Florida.
Okay.
Maybe someone can enlighten us. If Sandy, if you're listening.
Yeah, that's
would
cool.
love to know.
Who cares? A beach is great for me. It doesn't matter where it is. South of France, south of Miami, it's all good.
So it's a very beautiful layout.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone's done a great job. She's wearing her hair short and dark. Sandy has done light pink lipstick, sort of a pearly pink lipstick.
There we go. Pearly pink. Okay, got it. Pink is good?
Well, that's me describing it.
Okay.
With her eyes, it's sort
I
of
thought
more...
pearls were white, by the way. Okay, so go on.
Moving right along. So it's a very beautiful looking layout. So this is an issue that you surely would not want to miss. It's Vogue magazine, June 1991, Tatjana Patitz cover.
Well, we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you next week.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to Uncovered Vintage Fashion Magazine Review Podcast.
Uncovered was produced by Morley Schulman, with music by David Renda and logo design by Alan Lipman.
So remember, if you liked Uncovered, be sure to tell 2 friends about it.
And they'll tell 2 friends.
And so on, and so on, and so on.